Technology. Technology? What is a technology? Is this a technology? You know, the British call these computer crisps. Delicious. All this and more in this episode of In the Lane. If you don't know, this show is weird as hell. Even the fan art's got me feeling things. What is happening here? Apparently, people think Serial Experiments Lain was way ahead of its time. I heard that it predicted a bunch of stuff about the internet and technology today, which I think is cool. All I care about is if they predicted flat earthers, incels, or gender reveal parties. You know, normal stuff we all saw coming 20 years ago. For the record, I'm sure there's an insane amount of things to analyze in general about the story, but I'm just here to do a surface level look into some of the ideas from this show and connect it to our world. I'll start really simple and progressively get into the grittier topics. It'll be a fun little thought experiment. Alright, let's get into this. A lot of sci-fi shows have tech that's way ahead of its time, but I think what makes Serial Experiments Lain special is that it doesn't feel too far off from the technology today. An easy example to point to is powerful PC setups. Here, we see Lain start with a basic desktop setup, and as the show progresses, it gets more advanced. I don't imagine that powerful computers were that common in the average home in Japan in 1998, the year Serial Experiments Lain was completed. After all, computers only really began to be commercialized as a product for the typical home in 1976. Obviously, our computers aren't nearly as massive and noisy as hers. Nowadays, building your own PC isn't that weird, and having stuff like multiple monitors is useful, especially for programmers, artists, editors, streamers, or for general multitasking. Although, I don't know why you would need this many. Other tech I'd include to the list of things I saw would be a VR headset. This guy might also be doing something familiar to us. We see him broadcasting what he's doing live to a group of people online, and he's just walking around and talking to himself. And I don't know if anyone else thought this, but it kind of reminds me of an IRL streamer. Give it a second, any moment now, and I think he's gonna thank someone for the bits. Yeah, that's that. Nothing too sus yet. All the things I've said here are pretty tame, so let's go deeper.
We're all connected.
Cell phones really started gaining traction in 1990, only 8 years before Lain came out, and I think the show had an inkling that this tech would be so widely accessible that even children would be able to use it. And of course, this came true. Schools today are trying to implement things like iPads and laptops into the education system, since the internet's becoming an integral part of our society. As to whether the show thinks children getting into tech is a good or bad thing, it's kinda hard to say. In the show, some children get harmed and even killed when they can't distinguish reality and a game. It's a really terrifying moment. Yeah, that's gonna be hard to offset. But as for the good, we see other kids that know the ins and outs of the internet and understand how complex hardware works. Older adults that didn't grow up with this tech are pretty clueless. Lain gets made fun of by grade schoolers because to them, how all this tech works is just so obvious. There's also a businessman that can't even get a basic computer working. It's clear that older people have less of a handle on this tech. If you're an older viewer, then you probably understand how much your parents struggle with some pretty basic things on the computer. For example, locating files in different folders that aren't on the desktop. Or maybe that's just my parents. Just me? Just me? Okay. I think it's fascinating that Lain touches on how young and old people interact with tech, because these are interactions that we're familiar with in our world. But yeah, that's that. Again, not too crazy yet. On to the next thing.
A voice for anyone and about anything.
There are some pretty obvious positives about the internet. We can use it for education, or research, or to learn a skill. Some useful stuff you can learn on the internet would include how to maintain your car, how to say basic words in another language, or how to break your thumb ligament. Don't do this. Some other positives would be that those that didn't have a voice can now have one. But like most things, there's a flip side. A flip side that Lain touches on. The internet can be a clown fiesta to say the least. There are so many things itching for our time and attention. Random internet BS, popcorn drama, stupid memes. The idea of useless slop on the internet gets its ugly moment to shine in this scene.
もう危ないみたいだ。手形決済は避けて。
だって信じられる？あんなに素敵なのにそんな趣味だなんて。
プロトコル6には極めて重要なバグがあります。これによる損害はワイヤードにとって甚大で。
その子の部屋に毎晩赤と緑のしましまのセーターを着た子供みたいなやつが現れて、
あのアイドルが高校生時代彼氏の車に乗ってて人をひき逃げしてるって。
何これは本当だからね。私直接聞いたんだから。
あのビルは出るんで有名なんですよ。夜中に端末に向かってると誰もいないはずの車内からね。
ナイツなんて本当はいない。あれはアメリカの学生の情報。
うるさい。何が面白いのよ。
We see Lain get frustrated that no one's focusing on something that actually matters. I think this sounds a lot like Twitter and YouTube, where the spectrum of shitposting and political movements to make the world better are all on the same platform. On one scroll down, we can see Senate passes hate crime bill responding to wave of violence against Asian Americans. Good. Scroll down a little bit further. UFO sightings on the rise. Florida man describes orbs he caught on camera. Lain was right all along. It's quite the free-for-all fight for attention when it comes to the internet. The internet has become a cesspool for gossip and general toxicity, something depicted by Lain herself. I'll let this scene do the talking.
ねえ、知ってる？水木アリスが誰を好きかって。誰のことを思っていやらしいことをしてるかって。
やっぱりあんたが言いふらしてたの？噂は本当だったの？レイン！私のことそうやってじっと見てたの？私が秘密にしていることとか、私が絶対見られたくない時とか、私がそうだよね？レイン！
Shockingly, our words have consequences. It's something I think people on the internet still haven't learned. With that said, on to the next topic.
Internet personalities.
The concept of celebrities is nothing new. We've had rock star figures as early as the 1800s, with Franz Liszt. If you don't know about him, you should check him out. He was a sick pianist, and during his performances, women would faint from his playing, throw their clothes onto the stage, and pocket his used cigars. 1800s simps really hit different. But anyways, I believe that Lain predicted the rise of internet celebrities. In the show, Lain is something of a renowned figure, on the internet at least. So popular is she that kids that know of her seem to worship her religiously. YouTubers and Twitch streamers very much so have their cult followings. PewDiePie, Dream, Corpse, Mr. Beast, James Charles, they have a lot of die-hard fans that eat up anything they say or watch everything they do. It's pretty intense. While we're on the topic of internet personalities, Lain was someone that had two personas. One was reserved and shy, while the other was confident and wild. YouTubers and streamers aren't much different. They tend to overemphasize or exaggerate their personality to come off as more interesting. This is nothing new. You've seen Jimmy Fallon. People caught on to that act pretty quickly. And people did the same for Lain too. Alright, last thing I'll mention on this topic. There are some scary things about being known on the internet. Lain angers an online group of people called Knights, and they go out of their way to overload her computer and nearly kill her. On top of that, she's being stalked by some people. I know there's story context as to why this happens, but if I were to just look at these events at face value, these are unfortunately things that have already happened in our world. Internet personalities have gotten doxxed, stalked, or almost killed. All things this show has terrifyingly alluded to, intentionally or not. It's really haunting stuff. But yeah, that's that for internet personalities. On to the next.
Violence in media.
There are several eerie moments throughout the show where I literally thought the translations were wrong because what they were saying and how it was said were completely at odds with each other. In the show, the main group of girls witnessed a shooting where 2 people were killed. The next day, they're casually talking about it, and it's Arisu who has a moment of self-awareness.
でも私たち変だよ。私たち昨日人が死ぬのを間近に見たんだよ。それなのにまるで映画でも見たくらいの感覚でいる。
だって昨日の夜確かに私たちあそこにいたけどさ、なんかリアリティがなかったって気がする。
私もそんな感じかな。アリス、そんな深刻に受け止めない方がいいと思う。
そうじゃなくて深刻に受け止められないから変だってね、レイン。
あ、何？
あれ？それってラブレターとか？
嘘！
This all happened so quickly, I questioned it happened at all. One moment, they're talking about why they weren't shocked by 2 people being killed in front of them. And then they're talking about a love letter. And this is done very intentionally, because this happens a second time when they're talking about children being killed. And the worst part, becoming numb to violence is a real phenomenon. In an experiment by Brad Bushman and Craig Anderson, these scientists had a group of people watch a violent movie, and had another group watch a non-violent movie. Afterwards, participants were given a long questionnaire, and during it, they would, quote, hear a fight happen outside the lab. Participants that watched the non-violent movie were more likely to be swifter in helping out the injured person than the participants that watched the violent movie. This experiment was repeated but with video games instead of movies, and the results were the same. The takeaway they got from this was that being exposed to violent media seems to make people less compassionate and more numb. Comfortably numb, as they called their article. In Lane's world as well as ours, there is so much violence on the internet. And seeing these characters behave like this is really creepy, mainly because I think we unintentionally act like that sometimes too. Do you think you've become numb to violence because of the media that you consume? Is it just me or is it getting kind of dark in here? Whew, wow, yeah. Let's just lighten the mood, put up a few candles, blow up some balloons. Wow, bright as day. Yeah, hunky-dory. Let's move on. There's a point in the show where it goes off into the deep end. Lane eventually becomes completely entrenched with the computer she's working with, that she's plugged her brain into the network. I know this is about to sound insane, but we're not far from that future either. Elon Musk and Facebook, with their massive fat stacks, are working on technology that would connect our brains with computers. There's a video going around about a monkey that played Pong only using its brain. On top of that, Facebook has stated that it's trying to work on technology that allows texting to other people only using our brains. As much as it terrifies us, I think it's only a matter of time before all of this stuff becomes a part of our lives. So yeah, that was 6 things that Serial Experiments Lain predicted in 1998. And I've still got more in the bag. What's that? You want me to rapid fire a few more because I couldn't find a place to categorize these connections to our world? Are you sure? Alright, here goes. In the show, a self-driving car kills a pedestrian. Just last year, in 2020, we had our first self-driving car accident that killed a pedestrian. In the show, someone hacked some information and blackmailed a company. In 2018 and 2019, Jeff Bezos' phone was hacked and blackmailed. His nudes were also leaked. In the show, people learn how to hack information on their own just from reading books. In our world, people below 18 have hacked personal information merely because they could. And that's all I've got. There's even more things Lain predicted that I think you can look into yourself. Serial Experiments Lain is a fascinating show that I had fun watching. I still find it crazy that this show predicted so much in 20 years, but I find it equally crazy how far we've come as a society in that time. I have no idea how our government and laws are going to keep up with all this since we're advancing so fast, but I guess in the meantime, we'll keep letting companies sell our information. Sad vibes. Anyways, it was really fun trying to piece together its story and see its connections to our world. You should check this show out. And if you want to, check out my channel, like and subscribe, cause I'm trying to grow this bad boy. I'm halfway there to 1,000 subs, and that's really exciting. This has been one of my favorite hobbies to play with. Alright, I'm returning to my closet until I write another script. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.